Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into something that, well, it touches every single one of us every day, often without us even realizing it. We're talking about the profound, sometimes hidden ways emotion drives how we interact with everything, products, places, even people.
Yeah, like why you love that beat-up old mug, or why you just inexplicably hate that sleek new gadget, even if it's technically better.
Exactly. It's all about those feelings.
It's a really fascinating journey into how successful design taps into our deepest feelings, often super subtly. And understanding these layers, it can genuinely transform not just your daily life, but how you relate to all the tech that surrounds us now.
And our guide for this deep dive is none other than Donald Norman. We're drawing heavily from his groundbreaking book, Emotional Design, Why We Love or Hate Everyday Things.
A classic for a reason.
Okay, so let's unpack this right away. Norman. He was famous for being all about utility, right? Function.
Yeah.
The design of everyday things was like the Bible of logical, usable design, almost dispassionate.
Totally. That book set the standard.
So what happened? How did he, of all people, suddenly pivot to focusing so intensely on emotion? It feels like a complete 180.
Well, what's fascinating here is that it wasn't just like a change of heart. It came from this really profound realization, and it was backed by new science, new understandings of the brain.
Okay, science.
Yeah. He and others in the field started to see that emotion isn't just some optional extra. It's necessary, it's valuable, and it's completely intertwined with how we think, with cognition, with everyday life.
So not separate at all.
Not at all. And his conclusion was pretty startling for a lot of people back then. Emotion makes you smart, which, flew in the face of the common idea that good decisions have to be purely rational, purely logical.
Wow. Emotion makes you smart. Think about that. We're usually told, keep emotions out of it, be logical.
Oh.
But Norman's saying they're tangled together and you need the emotion for good decisions. Is that just philosophy or is there real science there?
Oh, absolutely rooted in science. It's about how our brains actually work. Modern neuroscience shows emotions aren't just feelings floating around, they're physical processes. They use neurochemicals that literally change the parameters of thought, changing how you perceive things, how you decide, how you behave.
Okay.
And think about Antonio Damasio's work. He's a neuroscientist who studied patients with really specific brain injuries, ones that damaged their emotional systems but left their intellect intact.
Yeah.
And these people, despite being perfectly intelligent otherwise, they were tragically unable to make decisions, even basic ones. What to eat, where to live, what products to buy. They just couldn't choose.
That's astounding. So a smart person just gets stuck.
Yeah.
Can't make a choice.
Precisely. Damasio's work showed that our emotional processing, what Norman calls the affective system, gives critical help to our decision-making. It helps us make really rapid selections between good and bad, safe and dangerous. It cuts down the cognitive overload.
So it's like a filter.
Exactly. Without that emotional filter, every option seems equally valid, and simple choices become paralyzing. So when you just feel like doing something or buying something, that's your affective system working. The decision needs to feel right. That feeling is emotion guiding cognition.
So emotion isn't just a result, it's like a shortcut for our brains to deal with the world. Makes sense.
It really does. And it's useful to make a quick distinction Norman talks about. Affect versus emotion. Affect is more general, often subconscious. That instant gut evaluation, good, bad, like, dislike, safe, dangerous.
Okay.
Emotion is more the conscious experience of that affect, often with a cause attributed to it. You feel angry because someone cut you off. But that underlying affective system, that gut check, it's all about survival first. It makes lightning fast judgments, gets your body ready to react, often way before your conscious brain has even fully processed what's happening.
Okay, right. Survival kicks in first. Now, this next idea Norman puts forward, this one really blew my mind. He says, flat out, attractive things actually work better. How can that be? How can just looking nice make something easier to use? It feels fundamentally wrong.
It really does challenge long-held beliefs, doesn't it? Even back in the early 1900s, Herbert Reed said there's no necessary connection between beauty and function. But there was this study in the early 90s by two Japanese researchers, Kurosu and Kashimura.
Okay.
They experimented with different layouts for ATMs. Now, all the versions were functionally identical, same buttons, same operations, everything. But the way they were arranged, the overall appearance, varied in attractiveness.
So they just look different.
Exactly. And the surprising result was that ones rated rated as more attractive or perceived as being easier to use.
Perceived. Okay, that's a key word there. Not actually easier, but they felt easier.
Yes, perceived. But here's where it gets even more compelling. An Israeli scientist, Noam Choktinsky, read this study and was frankly highly skeptical. He figured it must be a cultural thing, right? Maybe Japanese culture values aesthetics differently than, as he put it, action-oriented Israelis. So he decided to replicate the experiment rigorously, translating the ATM screens into Hebrew.
Okay, so he's testing the culture idea.
He is, and guess what? Not only did he replicate the Japanese findings, the effect was even stronger in Israel. The prettier ATMs are rated as significantly easier to use. It completely defied his expectations.
Wow. So, not a cultural quirk. This seems like a fundamental human thing. So if we connect this back, what does this mean for how our emotions actually influence how we, think?
Well, it strongly suggests that our emotional states, which are clearly influenced by aesthetics, they fundamentally change how our cognitive system operates.
How so?
This is where the psychology comes in, drawing on work by researchers like Alice Eisen. Have you ever been really stressed out, anxious, and just couldn't see an obvious solution? Like you keep pushing a door that clearly needs to be pulled.
Oh, yeah. Definitely been there. Tunnel vision.
Exactly. Norman says that's negative affect anxiety stress narrowing your thought processes. It focuses you intensely on the problem, which might be good for escaping immediate danger, but it's terrible for creative problem solving.
Right. You get stuck.
You get stuck. Conversely, when people are relaxed, happy, in a positive, effective state, their thought processes actually expand. They become more creative, more imaginative, better at brainstorming, and much more likely to find alternative solutions. Happy people are more effective problem solvers. And interestingly, they might not even remember minor difficulties they encountered with a product if the overall experience was pleasant.
That explains so much, like why we forgive quirky designs if they're just delightful or fun to use.
It really does. It means designers can frankly get away with more minor usability flaws if the product is fun and puts the user in a good mood. Because users in that positive state are more tolerant, more flexible.
But the flip side?
The flip side is crucial. Products that are used in stressful situations where mistakes have high consequences, think emergency equipment, medical devices, control rooms, they need exceptionally meticulous, frustration-free design.
Because people might already be anxious.
Exactly. Their thinking might already be narrowed. In a control room, for example, during normal operation, maybe you want a calm environment, maybe even light background music to keep operators in a slightly positive state, open to spotting subtle patterns.
Okay.
But the moment something goes wrong, a parameter goes out of bounds. Bam. Alarms need to sound. Buzzing, ring-ung, flashing lights, things designed to induce negative effect, anxiety, to make operators focus intently on the critical issue.
But not too much anxiety, right? Because of the tunnel vision thing.
That's the balancing act. Enough negative effect to focus attention, but not so much that it causes panic or makes them miss an obvious alternative solution just outside their narrowed focus. It's a really fine line.
Yeah, that provides a really solid foundation for why emotion is just so central. So with that understanding, how does Norman help us actually break down these different emotional layers in design? How can we categorize them?
He proposes a really useful model with 3 distinct levels of processing, starting with the most immediate, the most primal, visceral design.
Visceral. Okay, sounds guttural.
It is. This is pre-consciousness, pre-thought. It's all about appearance, touch, feel, the immediate sensory impact. These are often our innate biological preferences, maybe genetically determined. Think of it as your lizard brain reacting.
So what does that mean for, the stuff we pick up every day?
It means that initial automatic response to how something looks and feels is incredibly powerful. Remember Norman's teapot collection he talks about in the book's prologue?
Yeah, he had quite a few.
He did. And the Nana teapot by Michael Graves is a perfect example of visceral design. It's got this unique, squat, chubby shape. It's just inherently appealing, charming. Its appearance makes you like it, maybe even love it, even if functionally it's not the best teapot ever made.
Right, it just looks friendly or interesting.
Exactly. It's that instant wow factor, that feeling you get when you see something and just know you want it, even before you know what it does or how much it costs.
We've all been there.
Oh, definitely. And companies know this. They leverage visceral appeal constantly. Think about Apple's first iMacs with those bright colors, or the reintroduced VW Beetle, or the Audi TT. Their sales boomed largely because of their distinctive visual design, even when the stuff inside was pretty similar to less popular model.
The look drove the desire.
Absolutely, and there's likely a deep biological basis for this. Humans tend to have an innate preference for symmetry, for rounded shapes over sharp angles, for smooth textures, vibrant colors, even pleasant smells and tastes. Think about flowers attracting pollinators, or colorful fruits attracting animals to spread seeds.
So we're wired to like certain things visually.
It seems so. These preferences probably evolved because these features historically signaled good things: food, warmth, safety, potential mates. Our brains are sort of pre-programmed to find these things appealing at a very basic level.
But hang on. Why do some designers, especially like high-end designers, seem to almost look down on things that are just pretty or cute? Isn't that a contradiction?
That's what Norman calls the designer's dilemma. It's true. Sometimes designers want their work to be seen as serious, imaginative, maybe profound or deep. And they might feel that just being pretty or cute is somehow superficial, lacking substance, too easy.
Yeah, like it's not art.
Kind of. But Norman argues there's absolutely a place for simplicity and pure enjoyment in design. Think about kids' toys. They often use bright, highly saturated primary colors precisely because they tap into those basic visceral preferences. They might not be considered great art, but they're effective and enjoyable for their audience. There's nothing wrong with delight.
Okay, so that's the gut reaction, the immediate appeal. What about actually using the thing, the experience of it?
Right, that brings us to the second level. Behavioral design. This is all about the pleasure and effectiveness of use. It covers function, what does it actually do, performance, how well does it do it, and usability, how easy is it to understand, to operate. Think about Norman's tilting teapot again, the one that gave precise control over brewing. Or even his simple metal tea ball. Those are examples of great behavioral design. They're practical, efficient, well thought out for the act of making tea.
And this seems like the area where designers can really miss the mark, right?
Right.
By not quite getting how people actually use things in the real world.
Absolutely. Norman really emphasizes
This audiobook
Too
is brought
often,
to
he
you by
says,
Sunil
designers
Sharma,
stay at their desks,
dedicated
maybe
designer.
adding features they think are cool, without really going out and observing how customers interact with products in their messy, everyday lives.
Got an example?
He talks about visiting a major software developer. He'd gathered a list of basic usability problems from actual users, people struggling with the software, and the design team was genuinely surprised. They were busy adding new complex features, but hadn't really studied the fundamental ways people were already using or trying to use their product. And a classic example of failing to see these unarticulated needs, as Norman calls them, is the saga of the cup holder in cars.
Ah, yes, the cup holder wars.
Exactly. People clearly wanted to drink coffee or soda while driving. You saw all those flimsy aftermarket things people bought. But car manufacturers, especially, Norman points out, German engineers who felt cars were purely for driving, not drinking, resisted putting them in for ages.
Until the market basically forced them to.
Pretty much. The demand was obvious if you just looked at what people were doing. It showed a failure to observe actual behavior. Another quick one. The design firm Erbs Lazarbel was working on a floor cleaning machine. Cup holders weren't requested by the client.
Right.
But the designers watched the maintenance workers using similar machines, saw them juggling coffee cups, struggling to find a place to put them down. So they added integrated cup holders to their design. And while that wasn't the only reason the product succeeded, it symbolized that they paid attention to the real needs of the user. That's good behavioral design.
So it's not just what it does, but how it feels to use it, like physically feels.
Oh, absolutely. Tangibility is huge for behavioral design. Norman mentions visiting the design firm IDEO and seeing their tech box. It was full of different knobs and switches. Some felt smooth and silky, others had a more clicky, precise feel, maybe because of viscous oil inside otherwise identical mechanisms.
The feel matters.
It matters a lot. The weight of a tool, the texture of a surface, the resistance of a button. These profoundly affect our experience of using something. And Norman worries that too many high-tech products are losing this by moving everything to flat touchscreens.
Virtual controls.
Yeah. Software offers amazing power and abstraction, sure, but taking away physical manipulation can remove a lot of the inherent pleasure, the emotional connection you get from handling real objects. Think about the satisfying weight and balance of a good kitchen knife, or the sounds and smells of cooking. As Norman puts it, the world of software is a world of cognition. Physical objects involve the world of emotion.
That's a great line. So good behavioral design isn't just making something work, it's making it intuitive, maybe even satisfying to interact with.
Exactly. It should ideally establish a proper conceptual model in the user's mind so it feels natural. You learn once, remember forever. And this also ties into universal design, the idea that designing for people with limitations often forces you to create solutions that are actually better and easier for everyone to use.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got visceral, the gut reaction, behavioral, the joy and ease of use. What's the third level? That sounds like it goes deeper.
It absolutely does. This is reflective design. This level involves rationalization, intellectualization. It's about the meaning of a product, the personal memories it evokes, the story it tells, how it reflects our self-image and our culture.
Okay, this is getting abstract.
It is, and it's the level most influenced by individual experience and culture. It's about how a product makes you feel about yourself when you own it or use it. It's about the message it sends.
I'm guessing Norman's infamous teapot for masochists. The one where the spout and handle are on the same side fits here. It's not beautiful, it's impossible to use.
You nailed it. That teapot is purely reflective design. It's hideous, it's useless for making tea. But what a statement, what a story. It became a symbol for Norman, a conversation piece about bad design. It exists to make you think and reflect.
So it's about the meaning, not the object itself.
Largely, yes. Think about the things we cherish most. Are they always the most expensive or beautiful or functional? Often not. It might be an inexpensive souvenir, a frayed old armchair, a faded photograph. We don't value them for their visceral appeal or their behavioral function. We value them for the memories, the stories, the personal meaning they hold.
This makes me think of kitsch. You know, those cheap little Eiffel Tower models or cheesy souvenirs that, like, art critics hate.
And Norman brings that up specifically. The art and design world often dismisses kitsch as cheap, tasteless, mass-produced sentimentality. But Norman argues that this dismissal completely misses their profound emotional value at the reflective level.
How so?
Those kitschy objects serve as powerful aids to memory. They connect us to a place, an experience, a person. As Yogi Berra supposedly quipped, nobody likes kitsch, it's too popular. But that popularity tells us something important. These objects satisfy a deep human need for remembrance, for connection, for telling our own stories. It's the sentimentality that gives them power, not their artistic merit.
So it's not the object, it's the relationship to the object and what it represents.
Exactly. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist famous for the concept of flow, did a study called The Meaning of Things. He asked people about the objects in their homes that were special to them, and overwhelmingly, the objects weren't valuable in monetary terms. They were cherished because they were tied to memories, relationships, stages of life. He mentions one woman pointing to her living room chairs, not fancy chairs, but they were the first ones she and her husband bought. They represented having babies and sitting in the chairs with babies. The attachment is to the meaning, the feelings, the story, the object helps you recall.
Photographs must be huge here too. They're almost pure memory triggers.
Absolutely. Photos have this incredibly special emotional appeal precisely because they capture moments, tell personal stories, connect us to our past and to people we care about. The challenge today, Norman notes, isn't taking photos we take billions, it's managing them. Digital photos often end up unseen in digital shoeboxes because organizing them is work.
Yeah, I definitely have that problem.
It's a huge design challenge.
Yeah.
How do we keep the incredible reflective power of photos but make them accessible and shareable without all the friction?
It really sounds like our possessions become extensions of who we are or who we want to be.
They absolutely do. Our clothes, our cars, our homes, the jewelry we wear, even our lifestyle choices. They're all public expressions of our identity. They signal things about us to others, and they reinforce our own sense of self.
And advertisers know this very well.
Oh, they're masters of reflective design. They associate products with desirable lifestyles, with happy, successful, attractive people, with celebrities. The goal is to make you feel that owning the product will make you more like that, enhance your self-worth, project a certain image.
Like buying the watch the cool spy wears.
Exactly. And think about brands like Swatch. They completely transformed the watch market. They realized they weren't just selling devices to tell time. They were selling emotion, fashion, self-expression. As Norman says, Swatch was not a watch company, it was an emotions company. Pure reflective play.
He contrasts that with other watches, doesn't he? like his own quirky one.
He does. He talks about owning a time by design watch. I
Right.
think it's called the Pi Watch, which showed time with rotating discs. Hard to read, terrible behavioral design.
Cool.
It was clever, visually interesting, visceral appeal, and a great conversation starter. Reflective appeal. People would ask about it.
Okay.
And he contrasts that with something like a Casio G-Shock watch. Pure behavioral utility. Rugged, functional, tells the time reliably under any conditions. No real aesthetic claims, no prestige, just solid performance. And Norman admits he owns and appreciates both types for different reasons, engaging different levels.
This all raises a really important question then. How do designers possibly balance these three levels? Visceral, behavioral, reflective. They seem like they can easily pull in different directions.
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the ultimate challenge, and there's no single answer because no product can satisfy everyone. Understanding the target audience, their context, their values, that's absolutely key. Visceral reactions might be somewhat universal. Good behavioral design is always important. But that reflective layer, that's deeply tied to culture, age, personal history, aspirations.
So it's complex.
It's incredibly complex. A truly great design, Norman argues, manages to harmonize all three levels. It needs to provide that initial appeal, be a pleasure to use, and resonate on a deeper, meaningful
This
level.
audiobook is brought
That's
to you
when you
by
get products that
Sunil
people
Sharma,
don't just use,
dedicated
but truly
designer.
love and form attachments to.
Speaking of love and attachment, let's shift gears a bit towards designing for fun and pleasure, because that feels like another whole dimension beyond just making something work well or look good.
Indeed it is. And it's an area where there's been some really cool exploration. Think about the work at the MIT Media Lab, especially under Professor Hiroshi Ishii.
What kind of things?
Well, imagine picking up elegant glass bottles, and as you lift each one, it plays a different harmonious musical note. Together, they create chords. There's no point to it other than delight. It's playful, unexpected pleasure. It's purely about fun, as Ishii puts it.
That sounds delightful.
It is. Or another project, Ping Pong Plus. You play table tennis, but fish are projected onto the table, and they scatter realistically whenever the ball hits near them. Again, not practical, but adds a layer of amusement and engagement.
So it's about injecting joy into interactions, not just efficiency.
Yes, exactly. And Norman suggests we could do this with information display too. Instead of just boring tables of numbers or graphs, why not use more delightful ambient displays? Imagine, say, colorful pinwheels mounted high up in an office, their spinning speed subtly indicating stock market trends or project urgency. Informative, but also visually engaging and non-intrusive.
That's a neat idea.
He also brings up the Japanese lunchbox, the bento box, as a metaphor, drawing on the work of designer Kanji Ekwan. A traditional bento box isn't just food, it's a miniature work of art. Carefully arranged, aesthetically pleasing, meant to be visually savored before being consumed.
Right, they can be beautiful.
And Ekwan sees this philosophy packing multifunctionality, miniaturization, and a deep aesthetic sense into a small package as the essence of much of Japan's design for high technology. It's about elegance and delight alongside function.
And we see bits of this playfulness in tech now,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm thinking of the Google logo.
That's a perfect example. Google's logo isn't static. It often changes for holidays or special events. Sometimes it stretches playfully when showing search results. It injects a bit of fun, reinforces a friendly, approachable brand image, that's reflective too, while still being informative. It makes the interaction feel less sterile, more delightful.
But what about things that are fun at first, but then the novelty wears off? How do you design for lasting pleasure, something that keeps you engaged, almost seduces you over time?
That's a great question. And it leads to the idea of a seduction model, which designers Julie Kozlowski and Nathan Shedroff proposed. They argue that truly engaging experiences need three things: enticement, that initial attraction, the visceral hook; relationship, continual fulfillment, making the interaction consistently rewarding; and fulfillment, a memorable, satisfying conclusion or ongoing sense of value.
Okay, entice, relate, fulfill. Makes sense.
Think about Philip Stark's famous Juicy Salif lemon juicer, that bizarre sculptural squid-like thing.
Oh yeah, I know that one. Looks amazing, but doesn't seem practical.
Exactly. Norman gives it 0 for behavioral design. Apparently, it's messy, unstable, and the gold-plated version even gets damaged by lemon juice.
Seriously.
Seriously. But he gives it 100 for visceral appeal. It looks incredible, sculptural. And 100 for reflective appeal. Why?
Because it's a statement, a conversation piece.
Precisely. Stark himself supposedly said, "My juicer is not meant to squeeze lemons, it is meant to start conversations." Owning it says something about your taste, your appreciation for design over mere function. It makes an ordinary action feel extraordinary. It entices with its looks and fulfills its reflective promise by being talked about. It's seduction through story and status.
So the relationship isn't with juicing, it's with the object as art. That's clever. What about something that is good to use, though?
Well, a counterexample might be something like the global kitchen knives Norman mentions. They have a distinctive, modern look, visceral appeal, but they're also renowned for their balance, sharpness, and feel in the hand. Excellent behavioral design. Using them is a pleasure. That combination provides sustained seduction because the beauty is matched by performance.
Okay, so beauty and function working together.
Yes. And sometimes surprise is key to lasting pleasure. He talks about the teapots strainer. Looks kind of cute, maybe a bit childish initially, visceral, but then you discover its clever functionality. Its little arms perfectly hook onto the side of your teacup. That moment of discovery, that aha, transforms the perception from just cute to fun and clever. The surprise adds a layer of delight that lasts longer than just the initial appearance.
So unexpected cleverness can create lasting enjoyment.
It absolutely can. It relates to this idea Norman discusses about appreciating complex things over time, like a beautiful, complex view or a piece of classical music. You don't just see or hear it once. Each time you engage with it, you notice new details, new relationships. Its richness offers continued discovery, preventing boredom and fostering lifelong appreciation. But importantly, this also requires skill and attention from the perceiver to unlock that richness.
So it's a two-way street between the design and the user's engagement. And speaking of richness and emotion, music and sounds feel like they operate on all these levels almost simultaneously.
They absolutely do. Music is perhaps the most powerful emotional orchestrator we have. Rhythm, melody, harmony. They seem fundamental, maybe pre-wired into our biology, and certainly universal across cultures. Music hits you viscerally, the beat makes you want to move, it engages you behaviorally, you might dance, sing along, play an instrument, and it works reflectively. You analyze the structure, understand the lyrics, connect it to memories.
And it's everywhere. Airlines, cars, shops, even construction sites. You mentioned that DeWalt radio charger thing.
Yeah, it's fascinating how essential music is. That DeWalt product combined a tool charger with a rugged radio, recognizing that construction workers often want music playing. It meets a behavioral and emotional need on the job site.
But then there's a dark side.
Yeah.
Noise pollution.
Yeah.
All those jarring, unthinking electronic beeps, the constant hum of fans.
Exactly. While music can create positive feelings, the cacophony of poorly designed electronic sounds is often a major source of stress and negative affect. Think about that annoying beep your microwave makes over and over, or the incessant whine of a computer fan. Norman makes a strong plea for more thoughtful sound design, more melodious signals. He praises the Richard Sapper kettle that plays a pleasant chord instead of whistling shrilly, or the Segway, which apparently had a musical gearbox sound designed to be informative but not annoying. We need to reduce unnecessary noise, make essential signals less grating, maybe use vibrations more for things like phone alerts. Unwanted sounds just create anxiety and reduce our effectiveness.
Film directors seem like absolute masters of using sound and visuals too to pull our emotional strings.
Oh, completely. Film is a fantastic case study in applied emotional design. Directors use every tool: dark scenes, looming shadows, sudden loud noises, foreboding music, uplifting scores, camera angles, shooting from below to make someone seem powerful, from above to make them seem vulnerable.
And often we don't even consciously notice it.
That's the goal. They want complete absorption at the visceral and behavior levels. They want you feeling the tension, the joy, the fear, often bypassing your critical analysis during the experience itself. Daniel Boorstin broke down the film experience into levels similar to Norman's.
How so?
He talked about the visceral, that gut reaction, jumping at a sudden scare. Then the vicarious, which is like Norman's behavioral. You get engrossed in the story, you feel with the characters, you achieve that flow state Csikszentmihalyi talks about. It requires that willful suspension of disbelief.
All right, you're in the story.
And then there's the voyeuristic, which maps to Norman's reflective level. That's your intellect stepping back, analyzing the plot, critiquing the acting, thinking about the themes. Forsten argued that if this reflective part intrudes too much during the movie, it can actually ruin the immersive experience.
Interesting. So the best films probably balance all three.
Exactly. Think of truly great films. Norman mentions The Magnificent Seven or Citizen Kane. They hit you in the gut, visceral, they pull you into the characters' journeys, behavioral, all vicarious, and they give you plenty to think about afterward, reflective, voyeuristic. They engage the gut, the heart, and the mind.
This is all making me think about the future, especially with AI and robots becoming more integrated into our lives. Are we heading towards truly emotional machines?
It's one of the most compelling and maybe slightly unnerving questions out there. We have all these fictional examples, right? HAL in 2001, who develops a kind of logical fear when being shut down, but it lacks real human feeling. David in Spielberg's AI, programmed for unconditional love, which ends up being unsettling in its perfection, lacking the normal range of human emotions.
Or Spock and Data from Star Trek, struggling because they lack emotion.
Precisely. Their lack of emotion often makes social interaction difficult and complex decision-making challenging. And this points to a key insight. For robots to function effectively and safely in our complex world,
This audiobook
they probably
is brought to
need
you by
emotions.
Sunil Sharma,
Wait, really?
dedicated
Robots
designer.
need feelings, not necessarily human feelings, but some kind of internal affective state.
That's the argument. Not human emotions, no. But functional affective systems tuned to their needs as machines. Think about it. A robot might need a state analogous to fear of heights to avoid falling off ledges, or fatigue to signal a low battery and seek charging, or maybe pain if a joint is being strained to prevent damage.
So like internal warning systems that trigger behaviors.
Exactly. Simple, fast-acting circuits, analogous to our visceral level, that guide the behavior for survival and efficient operation. Even Isaac Asimov's famous laws of robotics kind of imply this.
How so?
Well, the third law is self-preservation. Robot vacuum cleaners already implement this. When their battery gets low, they automatically return to their charging station. That's a basic self-preservation behavior driven by an internal state monitor. The first law, don't harm humans, requires sensing and reacting appropriately to human presence. The second law, obey orders, gets complicated when orders conflict or endanger the robot or others needing some kind of prioritization system, maybe influenced by internal state.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the other way around? Machines sensing our emotions. That sounds even more sci-fi.
It's actually a very active field of research. It's called affective computing, and a pioneer is Professor Rosalind Picard at the MIT Media Lab. Her group works on developing machines that can detect human emotional states.
How? How can a machine tell if I'm happy or anxious?
Through various channels, analyzing facial expressions, even tiny micro-expressions, reading body language and posture, and monitoring physiological responses, things like pupil dilation, heart rate variability, galvanic skin response, sweating, things that often change involuntarily with our emotional state.
Huh. Like a lie detector.
Essentially, yes. And that comparison highlights the challenge. A polygraph is an emotion detector measuring physiological arousal. But it's not a reliable truth detector because arousal can be caused by many things: anxiety, fear, surprise, not just lying.
Right.
So interpreting these signals correctly is really complex, and it raises huge ethical questions. If your computer detects you're frustrated, what should it do? Should it try to help? Ignore it? What if it misinterprets your emotion? It gets tricky fast.
And yet, it's fascinating how easily we project emotions onto machines, even very simple ones.
It really is astonishing. We seem hardwired to do it. Joseph Weizenbaum created a very early program called ELIZA back in the 60s. It was basically just a simple script that mirrored keywords back as questions, mimicking a Rogerian psychotherapist. And people poured their hearts out to it. They'd share intimate secrets, treat it like a real therapist, get angry if someone interrupted their session. Weizenbaum was actually horrified by how readily people anthropomorphized his simple program. There's a funny anecdote where a vice president used it thinking he was talking to a real person via teletype and didn't realize it was a program.
Wow. We just fill in the blanks.
We do. As Sherry Turkle, another MIT researcher who studies human technology interaction, observed, they push on our buttons whether or not they have consciousness or intelligence. We respond socially and emotionally to things that seem to engage with us, even if it's just a clever illusion. Think about MIT's later robot, Kismet, designed specifically to express emotions through facial features moving its eyes, ears, mouth. People had rich interactions with it, interpreting its movements as real feelings.
Which brings us right back to today and this paradox of modern communication. We're constantly connected, yet often feel more distracted or even isolated.
It's a profound tension, isn't it? Norman points out that throughout history, the killer apps have always been technologies that facilitate social interaction. Mail, the telegraph, the telephone, email, instant messaging, social media. We have a deep-seated need to connect.
Even text messages, like those quick, "What are you doing?"
Yeah,
texts.
exactly. He highlights how teenagers and business people too use these seemingly content-free messages, which we're doing, primarily for emotional connection. It's about reassurance, maintaining a sense of presence, knowing someone is thinking of you or available. People feel genuinely cut off without tools like Instant Messenger because they fulfill that need for constant, low-level social connection.
But the downside, the constant interruptions, the divided attention. Didn't the Roman philosopher Seneca worry about having many acquaintances but no friends?
That's the exact quote Norman uses. It feels incredibly relevant today. There's this fundamental lack of symmetry with interruptions. The person initiating the contact, sending the text, making the call feels connected, but the person being interrupted often feels intruded upon, their focus broken, maybe even ignored if they're with someone else in person.
And it's dangerous too, right? Like driving while talking on the phone.
Absolutely. Numerous studies show that talking on a cell phone while driving, even hands-free, significantly impairs driving performance. It's not just about having your hands free, it's about cognitive load. The conversation divides your conscious, reflective attention, impairing your ability to plan, anticipate, and react quickly. Your brain is partly somewhere else.
Leading to what some call continuously divided attention.
Yes. The risk is that we end up skimming the surface of many interactions, constantly switching context, at the expense of deeper thought, deeper work, and deeper relationships. We end up in this love-hate relationship with our technology. We love the connection, the information, the convenience, but we hate the frustrations, the complexities, the constant interruptions pulling us away from the present moment.
So what's the answer? How do we design for that richness of interaction without the constant disruption? How do we get back some control?
That is the core design challenge for the future, Norman argues. And the solutions probably need to be both social and technological. Socially, maybe we need new etiquette, learning to be more mindful about when we interrupt others, setting boundaries for our own availability.
And technologically?
Technologically, maybe our devices could be smarter about negotiating interactions. Imagine your phone automatically checking someone's calendar and finding a mutually free time for a call, rather than just ringing and demanding attention now. It's about designing systems that respect focus and allow for periods of uninterrupted thought and interaction, empowering the individual to manage the flow, not just react to it.
And ultimately, Norman says, we are all designers in a way, right?
Right. I love that point. Even with mass-produced objects, we personalize them. We choose them, arrange them, modify them. Think about a favorite pair of jeans that gets faded and worn just right, or a banged-up cooking pot that holds memories of countless family meals, or the way you curate your personal website or social media profile.
We make them our own.
We invest them with meaning through our use, through the stories they accumulate. This personal design, this act of appropriation and personalization is crucial for creating that deep reflective value, that emotional connection. It goes way beyond just mass customization options offered by a manufacturer. It's about the relationship we build with the object over time.
Wow. So we've really taken a deep dive today, haven't we? Exploring how our emotions truly shape our world. From the simplest object we pick up to the complex relationships we navigate online and offline. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And what's so fascinating, I think, is realizing that design is never just about how something looks or how it works. It's fundamentally about tapping into those different emotional levels, that instant visceral reaction, the pleasure or frustration of the behavioral experience, and that deep reflective sense of self, meaning, and connection.
Absolutely. We've seen how emotion makes us smarter, how those three levels, visceral, behavioral, reflective, give us a powerful lens to understand why we love or hate everyday things.
Mm-hmm. From teapots to ATMs, from Google's logo to the sounds our devices make, even to the potential emotions of future robots. Design is constantly playing on and with our emotional systems.
And recognizing that the true value of so many things we cherish comes not just from their function, but from the stories, the memories, the way they reflect who we are.
Exactly. And the big challenge for designers creating these things, maybe for all of us using them, is how to harmonize these layers, how to create experiences that aren't just useful or pretty or meaningful in isolation, but somehow manage to be all three, leading to that deeper, more satisfying emotional connection.
Which leaves us with a final thought, a question really, for you listening. In this world that's just saturated with devices buzzing with constant connection, How can you consciously curate your own interactions, your own environments, to foster deeper, more meaningful emotional connections? Not just with your favorite things, but maybe more importantly, with the people who truly matter most.
Yeah.
What stands out to you from all this?